Theme parks are known for their immersive environments, but did you know that many of the elements featured in these amusement settings is art from the past? My name is Chris, and I'm an art historian and theme park fan, and I want to tell you the background of many of the things you commonly see around you. There's a connection between Epcot's Canada Pavilion and California theme park Knott's Berry Farm. Knott's Berry Farm, if you're unfamiliar with it, is about 7 miles north of Disneyland in Southern California. It was founded by Walter and Cordelia Knott, who started a boysenberry farm 3 years before the Walt Disney Company started. They opened the park to feature various aspects of American history, and that eventually included indigenous people groups. Today, Knott's covers a wide range of themes, from the Old West ghost town to the Oceanside theme boardwalk, and even a whole Camp Snoopy, the first in fact. The Canada Pavilion at Epcot is part of World Showcase and features aspects of that country. It doesn't seem like a very American theme park and a world-minded theme park would share something in common. But it's because both pay respect to Native Americans that they do have something in common. In both parks, there's artwork from tribes and cultures in the northwestern part of North America. These groups were in territories of the modern-day Canada and Alaska, and therefore are part of both countries' histories. Both parks have what are called plank houses and totem poles. The Canada Pavilion's showing of these is just basically a shop. Knott's version had been the building for an attraction called Mystery Lodge, but now it does hold a shop as well. Totem poles in Knott's are also in another location in the park where there's a stage for Native American authentic dances. The people groups of the Pacific Northwest include the Tlingit, the Haida, and the Kwakwaka'wakw. Housing in these cultures consisted of one central house known as a plank house. Vertical planks would line the front and there would be a single door for the opening. The planks would typically be made of cedar bark and could be several hundred feet long with a 50-foot width. The plank house contained a large room with a central fire pit. A smoke hole at the top was where the fire smoke would escape, but there was no other windows present. Part of the house was partitioned off with screens for the chief and his family. The house represented the world as they understood it. The fire pit represented the center of the universe. Where everyone was spaced out inside represented their status in the community. The plank house was also the governmental headquarters. Totem poles would be support structures for the house sometimes. These and other totem poles represented stories or legends that connected to the history of the tribe. Totem poles would also memorialize events or people. There would commonly be images of animals carved into the poles. Some of these would include beavers, bears, orcas, sharks, hawks, eagles, ravens, and representations of mythical creatures like the thunderbird. Thunderbirds have a cloud hat which differentiates them from other birds. In the 1800s, the totem pole started to chronicle interactions with Europeans. By the late 1800s, traditional plank houses were done away with. The concept of a multi-family dwelling gave way to single-family dwellings brought by missionary cultures. It can be seen as controversial, but the missionaries brought in this style of housing because they noticed some unhealthy issues with the multi-family housing. The single-family houses also had more general ventilation, which provided more healthy air in general to try to prevent some sickness. Missionaries almost got rid of all totem poles, but before they did, they found them to be works of art. They allowed them to stay without any rituals to be done around them. Some of the native peoples did become devout Christians and felt that they did need to abandon the other spiritual practices of their community's culture. In Old Kassan, a national park was declared in 1915 because it had many intact plank houses and totem poles. However, a fire in 1920 destroyed most of the houses. In 1955, the national park status was revoked because the rest of the houses were not kept up and were deteriorating. Plank houses and totem poles have begun to re-emerge, however it's not in the original way they were designed to be. Scholar Rachel Griffin has said that the native people we now consider artists were not in the business of producing art objects per se. The importance of their creations did not reside in the object, but in the fact that it reflected and embodied the processes, ceremonial and practical, that culturally define the individual and the community. The reemergence of these structures is now to convey an art form. Though they were considered artistic in the past, it has become its primary purpose. Margaret Blackman has even argued that the exposure to other cultures has helped produce more creativity for modern Indigenous artists. One artist, Robert Davidson, has even broken down the development of the art into principles. Some of these principles is how line produces space that solidifies and even helps produce other lines. These designs have made their way into other mediums in contemporary contexts like jewelry and fashion. The other way these items pop up as art are in museums. But considering them as art for exhibits is a predominantly Western culture aspect. Again, it's not the way it was intended for totem poles and plank houses to be. Rachel Griffin writes how it can give authority and legitimization to the work because of the evaluation museums have. There's a sense of importance these institutions give to the pieces. But there's still complexity to the relationship of something deemed as art when it wasn't created to be. Now, take that complexity to these pieces of art being in theme parks to create some sort of environment. One thing to consider, though, is that many of the original houses and totem poles have gone away because of fire or deterioration. Having recreations in theme parks allows for many people of various cultures to see what they could have been like. However, the questions of complexity still remain. Are they just for display? Are they to give a sense of the community that once used the same structures? Then should they be used to be on display for theme park guests? I leave you with those questions to answer for yourself. Feel free to leave an answer in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more art in theme parks.